Where were the Roman guards when Jesus resurrected and the tomb was opened by angels? Most intriguing events of the resurrection that are often overlooked are the circumstances concerning the guards that were to watch the tomb, where Jesus was laid after crucifixion. Led by Annas and Caiaphas, the chief priests sought out Pontius Pilatus to request the tomb, where Jesus was to be buried, be sealed, and that Roman guards would be stationed to watch it. Their fear was that the friends of Jesus would steal the body, to give the appearance of his resurrection, thus humiliating and accusing the Pharisees of killing the Son of God. Pilatus responded to this request, "You shall have a guard, go your way and make it secure according to your wish." So with that request about 30 Roman soldiers sealed the tomb of Jesus, after his body was placed inside the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. They rolled a stone that weighed about 2 tons, 4,000 pounds, and then sealed it with the Roman imperial seals of the procurator Pilatus himself, which was the official Roman wax seal. Understand that defacing these seals was a very high crime, punished by death. According to tradition, Pilatus had placed one of his best guards to lead the pack, named Petronius. Their job to watch the tomb was to be as precise and faithful as the crucifixion itself. Honestly, they had no interest in doing this at all, but their sole purpose and obligation were to rigidly perform their duty as a soldier, in which they made an allegiance. The Roman seal that was put over the tomb was far more sacred to them than any philosophy or creed of Israel. These are not men who would be fooled by timid Galileans, or jeopardize their necks by sleeping while on duty. The punishment for quitting post was death, according to the laws. The most famous discourse on the strictness of camp discipline is that of the Greek historian Polybius, which indicates that the fear of punishment produced faultless attention to duty, especially night watches. There were 2 types of guards during this time: a Roman guard and a temple guard. According to the Greek and Roman antiquities, one Roman guard consisted of 4 men that rotated throughout the night. So 2 guards would be 8 men. One would stand watch, and the others rested beside him, to be easily woken. The temple guards, specifically at night, were placed in 24 stations about the gates and courts of Jerusalem. Of these, 21 were occupied by Levites alone. To put this in numbers, that would be 240 Levites and 30 priests on duty every night. During the night, the captain of the temple made his rounds. On his approach, the guard had to rise and salute him in a particular manner. Any guard found asleep when on duty was beaten, or his garments were set on fire, or he would even face a death penalty. These men were not allowed to sit down, let alone sleep. This is how tight the security measures were for both the Romans and temple guards in general. Now, how tight do you think the security measures were the night Jesus was put in the tomb? French priest and historian, Le Camus, stated, "Never had a criminal given so much worry after his execution. Above all, never had a crucified man had the honor of being guarded by a squad of soldiers." Everything was done by the Pharisees and Roman authorities to prevent a staged resurrection or abduction of the body. Then, all of a sudden, a great earthquake takes place. An angel descends from heaven, and rolls the stone, not just out of the way, but rolls it halfway up the mountainside. How would 12 men, disciples that is, do that type of feat, in front of all of those armed watchmen, without alarming anyone? Anyways, the Roman guards saw this with their own eyes, and Matthew 28:4 states that they were so scared they fell back like dead men. Obviously, it means that they passed out for some time. What happened next, we do not know. But it's clear from Matthew's Gospel that the guards witnessed the miraculous events that took place at the tomb. We don't know if they saw Jesus walk out of the tomb or not. It is quite plausible that they lay unconscious when Jesus left the tomb, and when they came to and realized it was not a dream, they just ran away. No matter when they left the scene, they would have been left with a powerful testimony to Jesus' resurrection. But what did the soldiers do after the event? They had to give their account of why they had left their post, why the tomb was opened and who rolled the stone. Did they say someone broke the seal? Who, if they did not? And if they had no one to point to, the soldiers would be punished to death. Should they say, they broke the seal, a crime punishable by death? Should they lie, and say they fell asleep, also punishable by death, or do they say, Jesus rose from the dead and bounced, which would be considered blasphemy, which we know is punishable by death too? Looks like the guards who eyewitnessed this shocking event, out of all the options had to choose telling the truth, no matter how preposterous it might have sounded. So, the guards came rushing into the city to the chief priests and told them everything that had happened. Matthew 28:12-13 tells us that the Pharisees assembled together, and bribed the soldiers with a large sum of money to falsely accuse the disciples of stealing the body. False witness was also punishable by death under Roman law. But surely, that was not applicable in the guards' case, as their false testimony would not have been challenged in court where the judges were the same Pharisees who condemned Jesus to death. So, the Roman soldiers were in a win-win situation. They took the money and kept the secret, that might have changed their lives forever, transforming them from Roman voiceless plebs to the followers of Jesus Christ. Then comes the predicament. Not only he was no more dead in the tomb, Jesus then recorded teaching his followers publicly for 30 days, and there are over 500 astonished eyewitnesses. The disciples now start preaching the gospel in the region where it happened, while all of the opposers stood helplessly watching it all transpire. The enemies of Christ stood silent with no opposition to these claims. Why? If the resurrection was somehow cleverly staged and the eyewitnesses' testimonies were false, why were the Pharisees and Romans so silent after the event and did not interfere into continuing preaching of resurrected Jesus? If the apostles were lying and made it all up and started proclaiming this in the region where literally everyone knows what had happened, why not easily disprove this fictitious tale, by just producing the body? Actually, that would have been easy to do by producing a body of any crucified man, considering how mutilated the body of tortured Christ might have looked like. Remember, even his own disciples did not recognize him after resurrection in Luke 24:15-16 and John 20:20. If the apostles were lying, why would not their adversaries start spreading rumors in other areas, thus discrediting the resurrection of some heretic who called himself the Son of God? Why wouldn't they debunk the so-called good news in different regions where people had no clue to what happened and who Jesus Christ was, so that nobody could dispute it? There could be only one logical explanation. And that is, the resurrection of Jesus Christ had really taken place, and to conceal that fact was not possible anymore, despite the silencing of the first-hand witnesses, the Roman guards. Both the Pharisees and Roman authorities were so perplexed by the Roman soldiers' testimony, and the consequent appearances and teachings of Jesus, that it took them quite a while to contemplate how to deal with that shocking phenomenon, and how to protect the established Jewish religion and Roman ways of life and worship. However, it is significant to remember what it says in Acts 6:7, that many of the priests in Jerusalem became believers in Jesus. One may wonder, if any of those who became believers were some of those Pharisees who paid off the guards for their silence.